Hi, I'm Cassandra Whitmore. And if you're listening to this, just know I wasn't always this cold. I wasn't always this calculated. I used to believe in fairy tales, in good men, and in promises spoken under candlelight. I was the kind of woman who'd pack his lunch with notes, who'd wait up just to hear about his day. I was soft. Trusting. Maybe too trusting. My world revolved around Ethan. I thought ours was a love worth envying. But the truth? It was all an illusioner. Beautiful prison I decorated with denial. And when the illusion shattered, something inside me shattered too. And that's when everything changed. Ethan Whitmore was everything a girl could want on paper. Smart, successful, kind in public. He had that magnetic confidence that turned heads when he walked into a room. He knew how to make people feel seen, special, important. That included me. I was working in publishing when we met. He came in for a corporate book deal. One look, one smile, and I was done. We were married within a year. Everyone said it was fast, but I didn't care. I was in love, or what I thought was love. Looking back now, I wonder if he ever truly loved me. Or just loved the control. We bought a house in the suburbs, a beautiful brick colonial with ivy curling up the sides. I turned it into a home. Every room told a story. Our wedding photo hung in the hallway, and a handwritten note from Ethan sat framed on my nightstand. Forever isn't long enough. I clung to that note like a lifeline. I told myself we were happy. We had dinner parties, wine nights, couple vacations, but something always felt ... off. He was affectionate, yes, but only when people were watching. When it was just us, there was a distance, a flicker in his eyes I couldn't quite name. Not yet. At first I thought the problem was me. I started doubting everything, my looks, my worth, my instincts. He'd come home late, smelling like a different cologne, claiming it was a coworker's or a store sample. He'd keep his phone face down, claim work was crazy, and disappear into the study for hours. When I'd ask questions, he'd smile like I was overreacting. He was good, too good. He had mastered the art of gaslighting. And I, like a fool, kept trying to fix what I didn't break. I lost sleep. I lost peace. But I wasn't ready to admit that I was losing him too. One night, I sat in the dark living room, staring at the wedding photo on the wall. I remember thinking, if he's lying, I need to know. Not guess. Not wonder. No. And that thought didn't let me go. The next morning, I ordered a hidden camera online. 2, actually. One shaped like a clock, the other disguised as a charger. I didn't tell anyone. Not even my sister. I wasn't ready for the fallout, just the truth. If I was wrong, I'd sleep better. But if I was right, then he was going to learn that betrayal has consequences. Ones he wouldn't see coming. People say they want the truth, but what they really want is reassurance. I thought I wanted the truth too until I got it. That camera arrived 3 days later. I placed it in our bedroom. My hands were trembling as I set it up, heart pounding with every beep. I felt sick. Ashamed. Like I was the one crossing a line. But deep down, I knew. He had already crossed it. All I was doing was pulling back the curtain. And yet, I hoped I wouldn't find anything. I prayed that I was just paranoid. That maybe, just maybe, the man I loved wasn't a monster. The first night, nothing happened. He came home late, said he had a board meeting, showered, and passed out. I watched the footage. The next morning, nothing. Second night, same routine. Third night, I almost didn't check, but something told me to look. And there it was. Not a stranger. Her, Harper Nolan, my best friend, the woman who helped me pick out my wedding dress, the woman who toasted to our love. She walked in like she owned the place, like I didn't exist. I watched, numb, as they laughed, touched, kissed, like I was the one intruding in my home. The video was raw, intimate, and revolting. Ethan looked so comfortable. So familiar. It wasn't just lust, it was routine. I paused the video, rewound it, watched it again in disbelief. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. This was deliberate, ongoing. They had a language, a rhythm, secrets that had no business existing. I didn't cry. I couldn't. My hands shook. My body went cold. But I stayed silent. I didn't storm out. I didn't confront him. Because in that moment, something inside me snapped into place. I wasn't going to be the heartbroken wife. I was going to be the executioner. After that night, I wore my mask better than he ever did. I cooked his favorite meals. I laughed at his jokes. I played the part so flawlessly that even he believed it. Every touch, every kiss, was poison in disguise. He had no idea that I was watching him from the shadows, collecting every lie, every betrayal like puzzle pieces. I started planning, slowly, carefully, because revenge, real revenge, isn't loud. It's not dramatic or impulsive. It's calculated, controlled. It's the slow tightening of a noose while the traitor smiles, thinking he's safe. And Ethan, he was so sure he was safe. I started imagining what the truth would look like when served on a silver platter. Not just to Ethan, but to Harper. And to everyone who ever called our love perfect. I didn't want to just leave him. That would be too merciful. I wanted to strip him bare publicly, undeniably, in a way that couldn't be undone. So I waited. And while I waited, I set the stage. I threw myself into planning a celebration hour anniversary dinner. I told Ethan I wanted a night to remember, and I meant it. Just not in the way he thought. He thought it was love. It was a trap. Every smile I gave him after that was a dagger with a pearl handle. Every I love you was dipped in venom. I started writing a script in my mind, how it would unfold, how I'd watch their faces crumble in front of our closest friends. I imagined the silence, the stares, the disbelief. I imagined Harper running, Ethan breaking, and me, standing still. Composed. A woman who took back her power, one secret at a time. I didn't tell a soul. This was my storm. And I wanted the lightning to strike with precision. The kind of precision you only learn when you've been betrayed. That's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't just break you. It builds something new. Something colder, sharper. I wasn't the Cassandra who cried over pillowcases and perfume. I became someone else. A version of me that could smile while setting fire to the life we built. And Ethan never saw it coming. He thought I was healing. He thought I was his. But the truth, I was never his. Not after that night. Not after the lies. And the day he finds out just how deep my revenge runs will be the day he learns, when you cheat on a woman who gave you everything, you don't just lose her, you wake her up. Ethan was the kind of man who made other women jealous and their husbands insecure. He had that polished charm, the kind that slipped into rooms like silk smooth, effortless, convincing. He knew everyone's name, remembered the tiniest details, and spoke with a warmth that made people feel seen. With me, he was attentive, affectionate in public, always quick with a compliment or a kiss on the forehead. People said we were the perfect couple, aspirational, and I believed them. I wore his last name like a badge of honor. But behind the curtain, behind closed doors, Ethan wasn't a dream. He was a performance. A carefully rehearsed lie. He wasn't violent. He wasn't cruel. No, he was something worse, deliberate. His betrayals weren't impulsive. They were structured, organized, and routine. That's what made it all the more insidious. Ethan didn't slip into infidelity. He lived there, and he made sure to make me feel like the paranoid one. The overly sensitive wife who just needed to relax. Every time I questioned something, he twisted it into concern. He made me second-guess myself so masterfully, I began apologizing for noticing things. That's the genius of a narcissist. They gaslight you until your reality bends to theirs, and by the time you realize it, you're already drowning. I started noticing the late nights first. He used to be home by 6:30 sharp, sometimes even earlier, but lately, it was 9 o'clock, sometimes 10 o'clock, always with the same excuse: work. Baby, I'm doing this for us, he'd say, loosening his tie, brushing his lips against mine. But his voice didn't sound tired. It sounded rehearsed, like a man reading from a script he'd performed before. I wanted to believe him. I tried to believe him, but something about his body language screamed detachment. His hugs felt empty, his eyes wandered, and the man who once clung to my every word now barely looked me in the eye. He became obsessed with his phone. It was never out of sight. It buzzed constantly, but he never let me see who was texting. If I so much as glanced, he'd tilt the screen away or lock it with a swipe. Privacy, he said. Every man needs a little space. I nodded, pretending to understand, but deep down, I knew. Space was never the issue. He wasn't carving out privacy, he was carving me out. Replacing conversations with secrecy, warmth with distance. And the more I tried to pull him closer, the more he slipped away. Smiling, sweet-talking, gaslighting me with practiced ease. There were nights when he'd come home smelling like a different perfume, one I didn't own. When I asked, he'd laugh. Someone spritzed it at the office. I walked through it. Convenient. Then there were the shirts and buttons slightly differently, cologne over sweat, hair too neatly styled for a man who claimed to be exhausted. I started to memorize the excuses, the patterns. He wasn't trying to hide it well anymore. Maybe he thought I was too weak to leave. Maybe he thought I'd never find out. Or maybe just maybe he liked the thrill of deception. Some men don't cheat because they're unhappy. They cheat because they can. Harper was the final straw. She came over one Sunday afternoon while Ethan was out, brought a bottle of wine and sympathy. "He's lucky to have you," she said with those soft, deceitful eyes. I remember looking at her, feeling that twist in my gut. Instinct is powerful. It whispers when something's wrong, even when the evidence is buried. She complimented our marriage, our home, even my loyalty. The hypocrisy made me want to scream, but I smiled, nodded, poured her another glass. Because in that moment, I realized I wasn't just dealing with a cheating husband. I was dealing with betrayal layered in friendship, trust, and venom. What hurt the most wasn't the sex, it was the performance. The time, the effort, the planning Ethan put into keeping up appearances. He still bought me flowers. Still sent texts saying, "Thinking of you." Still brought me coffee in bed every Sunday like clockwork. It was all part of the lie. A lie so well crafted, even I wanted to believe it. He wanted to keep the illusion of the perfect wife, perfect house, perfect life while living a second one in the shadows, and I played along, like a prop on his stage. But behind the curtain, I was waking up, and I was documenting everything. The thing about liars is they forget the details. But I didn't. I kept notes. I tracked times, locations, slip-ups in his stories. I remembered phone calls that didn't add up, receipts he forgot to hide, calendar events he never mentioned. Every inconsistency was a thread. And I pulled them, one by one, until the fabric of his lies began to unravel. He didn't even notice I was watching. He thought I was spiraling into sadness, but I wasn't crying in bathrooms or calling therapists. I was building a case, a quiet, relentless case that would expose him, ruin him, and remind him I wasn't stupid. Sometimes I would lie awake at night, just watching him sleep. Not out of love, but out of calculation. I'd wonder if he even felt guilt. If he ever looked at me and thought, "She deserves better." But I knew the answer. Ethan didn't feel guilt. He felt entitlement. He believed he could have me and Harper too. That he could cheat, lie, gaslight and still come home to dinner, sex, and praise. He underestimated me. He thought my silence meant defeat. But it wasn't silence. It was strategy. Because once you see through a man like Ethan, you don't scream. You sharpen your smile and wait. The world saw Ethan as this golden boy. The gentleman, the provider, the loving husband. I let them believe he was perfect. I posted anniversary photos, held his hand at events, kissed him in front of cameras. Every performance he gave, I mirrored. He thought we were winning an Oscar for Best Couple. What he didn't realize was that I was playing along to gather an audience one I'd invite to the unveiling. That's the beauty of revenge. It's not loud, it's patient, and when it finally comes, it doesn't ask for permission. It takes the stage, and it burns the script. Ethan had spent years perfecting his act, never realizing that he'd cast the wrong woman for the role of silent wife. I wasn't going to leave in the night. I wasn't going to cry in lawyers' offices or beg for closure. I was going to expose him on his own stage, in front of the people who once clapped for his lies. And I had the perfect plan. A celebration, a dinner party, a night of wine, laughter, candles and a hidden screen that would show everyone exactly who Ethan Whitmore really was. The golden boy was about to be tarnished forever. He thought he was untouchable. That's what liars believe. That no one is watching. That no one is keeping score. But I was. Every betrayal, every lie, every smirk. After a night at work, I remembered it all. And soon, he would too. In high definition. On a big screen, surrounded by friends. That's what made it so poetic. He built the lie. I just lit the match. He wrote the play. I just revealed the ending. And when the curtain finally falls, Ethan will realize one brutal, unforgettable truth. The perfect lie always demands a perfect reckoning. The camera arrived in a plain brown box. As unassuming as the betrayal it would capture. I opened it in silence, careful not to rip the packaging, like I was unwrapping the truth itself. My hands were steady, colder than I expected. There was no trembling, just focus. I read the manual twice, positioned the lens within a vintage clock that sat on the bedroom shelf. It had been Ethan's idea to put it there in the first place, a touch of elegance. Irony's favorite hiding spot. I synced the footage to my laptop, set it to auto-record with motion detection. Then I closed the bedroom door and waited for the mask to slip. The first night passed uneventfully. Ethan came home late, claimed his meeting ran long. He kissed me goodnight, barely brushing my cheek, and collapsed into bed like nothing was wrong. I watched the footage the next morning normal. No red flags. I almost felt silly. Almost, but I'd learned to stop trusting. Surface.com. The storm never announces itself. It builds in silence. On the second night, he said he was too tired for dinner. I ate alone, washed the dishes in silence, then opened my laptop. Again, nothing, but the third night cracked everything wide open. It was a Thursday. He said he was going to be working late again. A product launch, meetings. I nodded, playing my part. He left in a suit and came home in a t-shirt. Changed at the office, he explained. It got hot. His shirt was wrinkled. His smile, too smooth. I didn't ask questions. I just waited for him to fall asleep. When his breaths turned steady, I crept downstairs, opened the laptop and pressed play. What I saw next didn't shock me. It confirmed me. Harper, my best friend, walking into my bedroom like it belonged to her. Her laugh echoing like a knife. They didn't whisper. They didn't sneak. That was the part that broke me. They acted like it was routine, like they'd done it 100 times. She lay on my pillows, touched my things, and he kissed her, like he used to kiss me. That was the first time I truly understood what betrayal tastes like. It's not fire. It's ice. A slow freeze that starts in your stomach and spreads to your throat. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I watched. I made myself watch every second. I needed to. Because when you finally face the truth, you don't flinch. You absorb it, memorize it, weaponize it. I replayed it 3 times. Not because I was in shock, but because I needed to study their patterns. The way he touched her. The words he used. No one knows, he whispered. She has no clue. He laughed. She giggled. My name never came up. Not once. As if I didn't exist. As if my loyalty, my love, my entire presence had evaporated. That's when something inside me shifted. I wasn't devastated. I was activated. All the pain, the confusion, the nights I blamed myself, it turned into steel, cold, sharp, purposeful. The footage wasn't just proof. It was power, and I was going to use it. I made backups. 3 different drives. Uploaded it to the cloud under a secret email. I wasn't going to let this vanish like his excuses. I labeled the files with care, marked the timestamps, documented the sequence of betrayal. And then I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet, because storming in, crying, yelling, that's what they expected. That's what weak looks like. And I wasn't weak anymore. I was watching. Quietly, strategically, the calm before the reckoning. Ethan was already guilty. Harper too. All that was left now was the sentence and the stage to deliver it. The days that followed felt surreal. I'd sit across from Ethan at dinner, watching him chew, talk, joke, knowing full well what he was hiding. Every laugh he gave me was a lie. Every touch, a cover-up, but I played my role better than they ever could. I kissed him good morning. I packed his lunch. I even complimented his suits. And when Harper texted me about wine night, I said I'd love to catch up. I smiled at my betrayers like nothing had changed. But everything had. Because now, I held the truth. And they had no idea it was ticking in my hands. I began noticing new things, small patterns that never registered before. The way he always looked at his phone before entering the room. The way Harper's voice dropped slightly whenever Ethan was mentioned. Their stolen glances at group dinners. How had I missed it? The signs were everywhere. But love is a thick fog. It blinds you, muffles your gut, but not anymore. Now I was sharp. I was awake. And every little detail I picked up on only confirmed one thing. They weren't careful. They were confident. Too confident, and that made them sloppy. And that sloppiness would be their downfall. One night, I watched another clip, this time from the study camera. Ethan was on the phone with her. Same time next week, he asked. She'll never know. She's too sweet, too trusting. My blood turned to ice. Sweet, trusting. That's how he described me. Like a lamb grazing in a field while wolves circled in silence. I shut the laptop gently. I didn't cry. I just stared at the wall for a long time, listening to the clock tick. the very clock that now held his confession. His arrogance, her laughter, their filth captured, timed, stored, waiting for the right moment to explode. The more I watched, the less I felt like a victim. I wasn't wounded anymore. I was witnessing, documenting, stacking every act like a prosecutor preparing for court. But my courtroom wouldn't be a legal one. It would be something far more brutal, more poetic. I didn't want him to lose a job or a few friends. I wanted him to see it all fall apart, piece by piece, in the very room he once felt safest. Surrounded by people who once clapped for him. I wanted to look into his eyes as the mask slipped publicly, finally, irreversibly. That was my justice. Planning the next steps became my therapy. I stopped questioning myself. Stopped looking for answers I already had. I bought a new dress, reserved catering. Set the dinner date our anniversary party. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of what he thought was blind devotion. I told everyone to dress formal. To bring a toast. And I created a special video montage that would capture our journey. Oh, it would be unforgettable. A highlight reel of love, loss, and betrayal. He would sit there, wine in hand, surrounded by smiles until the footage started playing. And then, just like that, the show would be over. The countdown had begun. Every smile I gave him now was rehearsed. Every kiss was a lie wrapped in silk. He had no idea that every moment brought him closer to the fall, and I savored it. Slowly, bitterly, patiently, because betrayal isn't just about what they do to you, it's about what you choose to do with it, and I had made my choice. I wouldn't just expose them. I'd annihilate the fantasy they built by brick until there was nothing left but truth, silence, and the ashes of the perfect lie they thought would never burn. The trap was never rushed. It was built carefully, brick by brick, like a spider spinning silk smooth, patient, invisible until it's too late. I started with the dinner invitations, sending them to our closest friends and family. The message was simple. 10 years of love, loyalty, and growth. Come celebrate with us. Ethan beamed when I showed him the digital flyer. He kissed my forehead and told me I was amazing. Of course, I smiled. Because he had no idea that behind every color choice, every RSVP, every wine glass was a label he'd walk straight into with Harper holding his hand. Blind to the destruction ahead, I knew I couldn't make the night feel suspicious. Everything had to feel normal. I hired a private chef, ordered elegant centerpieces, and picked a subtle playlist filled with songs that had once meant something to us. Ethan thought I was just being sentimental. I let him believe that. The guest list included all our married friends, Ethan's colleagues, and, of course, Harper. I texted her a heart emoji when she confirmed. So excited, she wrote. I bet she was. She probably thought she'd be sitting at my table, drinking my wine, and toasting my husband, ever realizing she was toasting her own public execution. The camera footage had been clipped and curated like a documentary. I didn't include everything's just enough. I wanted the story to unfold slowly, cruelly, undeniably. I added soft piano music in the background and opened with our wedding video. The same video we had shown 10 years ago, full of promises and laughter. Then came the footage from the bedroom, then the study, then their conversations. I edited their voices to stay raw and untouched, no distortion. I wanted every word, every betrayal, to be heard loud and clear. I named the final file, The Truth About Ethan Whitmore. That truth would premiere on our anniversary, the day of the dinner. I dressed like the woman he used to adore back when things were still real. A silk emerald gown, soft curls, red lipstick, and a necklace he'd gifted me on our second anniversary. He walked in while I was adjusting my earrings and said I looked breathtaking. I nodded, kissed his cheek, and told him tonight would be unforgettable. He wrapped his arms around me, and I wanted to laugh. This was the same man who called me sweet behind my back, who told another woman I'd never catch on. He was wrong, so wrong. And tonight, he'd finally understand. Guests arrived slowly, laughing, bringing wine and gifts. The house smelled like roasted lamb and rosemary. Laughter echoed through the halls. I played hostess, hugging people, pouring champagne, telling stories. Harper arrived late, in a black dress, her smile wide and her eyes full of mischief. She kissed my cheek and handed me a bottle of wine. To 10 years, she whispered. I looked at her, held her gaze, and smiled. To truth, I replied. She blinked, a little confused. Then moved on. Ethan toasted from the center of the room, raising his glass with that confident, charming grin. I could feel the tension in my spine. When the food was finished and dessert was being plated, I tapped my glass gently. Before we wrap up the night, I said, I have a little gift for Ethan, a short montage of our 10-year journey. People clapped. Ethan laughed, slightly embarrassed. You didn't have to, he began. Oh, but I did, I interrupted softly. I walked to the remote on the side table and dimmed the lights. A hush fell over the room. The screen flickered on. The opening frame showed our wedding, the kiss, the cheers. People smiled, sighed. Harper leaned into her wine glass. Ethan's hand found mine. And then, it changed. The transition was subtle, from wedding vows to grainy black and white footage. The bedroom, a figure entering. Another following. Gasps erupted. The time stamp glowed in the corner. Ethan's jaw tightened. Harper froze. I stood by the wall, watching every reaction with icy clarity. There was no way to deny it. There they were undressed, intimate, laughing. The room descended into shocked silence. A fork clinked against a plate. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Harper covered her mouth. Ethan turned to me, panic blooming in his eyes. "Cass," he said, barely audible. I didn't respond. The footage played on. The betrayal uncoiled in real time. The conversations came next. His voice, her giggle, their planning. The lies, the declarations of how clueless I was. My friends stared, horrified. Some looked away. A woman near the back stood up and walked out. I watched them all. Watched the story twist around the room like smoke. When the footage ended, the screen went black. Silence, thick, suffocating. I waited a beat, then walked to the center of the room and picked up my glass. 10 years, I said flatly. 10 years of lessons, of truth, of finally seeing clearly. I raised my glass, sipped, and placed it down. Then I turned and walked out. Ethan followed me to the hallway, stumbling through apologies, panic in every word. "It was a mistake," he cried. "It didn't mean anything. You were busy. We were distant. I didn't know how to fix us." I looked at him, steady, emotionless. "You didn't fix us because you were too busy destroying me." Harper came out next, mascara streaking her cheeks, begging me not to ruin her life. I smiled then. "You already did that, Harper. I just let everyone watch." I left them standing, there exposed, broken, cornered. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't strike them. I just let the truth do all the cutting. The guests were leaving in hushed clusters. No one looked me in the eye. Some hugged me, some couldn't speak, but they all saw, they all knew now. The golden couple was nothing but gold-plated lies. I didn't care about the whispers. I didn't care about the shock. What mattered was that they could never run from this moment. I gave them a scar, not one that fades, but one that festers every time someone mentions our names. That was my revenge, not loud, not violent but surgical. And in the stillness after, I felt something unexpected. I felt peace. That night, I didn't cry. I slept, alone in the guest room, door locked, the scent of roses still hanging in the air. I dreamt of nothing. Woke up clear-headed. Ethan had packed a bag and was gone before sunrise. Harper had blocked me. The silence was complete, and I welcomed it. I sat at the dining table, sipping coffee, surrounded by empty wine glasses and ruined centerpieces. My world had imploded, but I was still standing, still breathing, and now, finally, free. They took my trust, but I took back my dignity, one frame at a time. And that, I'd never let go. I didn't check my phone for 2 days. I didn't need to. The silence was louder than any apology ever could be. When I finally opened it, the notifications were endless messages from mutual friends, family members, even coworkers who had seen the footage or heard about it within hours. Some sent words of comfort. Others sent shock and disbelief. A few even admitted they'd always suspected something was off. But the ones that mattered stayed quiet. Ethan didn't call. Harper didn't text. That was fine. They had nothing left to say. Because when the mask finally slips, the only sound you hear is the echo of their fall. I took down the photos the next morning. The wedding picture. The framed vacation shots. His grinning face holding me like I was his prize. One by one, I pulled them from the walls, placed them in a box, and taped it shut. I didn't burn them. I didn't shred them. I didn't need to. Their value had already disintegrated. They were relics of a fiction I no longer subscribed to. The house felt emptier, yes, but it also felt real for the first time in years. No more performance. More pretending. Just the quiet relief of walking through truth instead of illusion. Ethan's family reached out. His mother called 3 times before I answered. She cried before she spoke, tried to explain him, begged me not to ruin his life further. I said nothing for a while. Then I calmly reminded her that I didn't ruin Ethan's life, he did. I simply let the world see what he'd tried so hard to hide. She fell silent. We both knew there was no argument left. Harper's brother sent a message, apologizing for his sister's betrayal. I didn't reply. Some apologies aren't for forgiveness, there for the guilty to sleep better. I had no intention of soothing anyone. The video spread further than I expected. Someone had recorded it on their phone, uploaded it. Within days, it was everywhere, shared in private groups, whispered about at brunches, texted between colleagues. The dinner party confession, they called it. My name became a quiet headline in small circles. Some people praised me. Others said I went too far. I didn't care either way. This wasn't about attention. This was about reckoning. About stripping to people of the masks they used to hide their rot. And the more they tried to disappear into silence, the louder the consequences followed them into every corner. Ethan lost a contract at work. One of his clients had been at the party. Another saw the video. In a firm built on image and integrity, his exposure became a liability. He was quietly asked to take a leave of absence. Last I heard, Harper moved in with her sister. Rumors swirled, of course, about her trying to start over, about Ethan showing up at her door late at night, begging for a place to stay. I didn't follow up. Their story was no longer mine to track. I had closed that chapter with finality. What came next, for them, wasn't my concern anymore. The most surprising part of it all was how light I felt. I had braced for grief, for a wave of heartbreak or anger that would come crashing in once the dust settled. But it never came. Instead, I felt clarity. Freedom. The truth had severed a cord I didn't even realize I was choking on. I no longer second-guessed myself. I no longer apologized for my suspicions. I had trusted my gut, taken back control, and exposed the rot in my life with precision. And in doing so, I had proven something, not to them, but to me, that I was no one's fool. People often asked if I regretted it, showing the video, making it public. You could have handled it quietly, one friend said. It might have been more dignified. I looked her in the eye and told her what dignity really means. It's not staying silent to protect someone else's comfort. It's not swallowing betrayal so others don't feel awkward. Dignity is truth, sharpened and steady. Dignity is standing in a room full of people and refusing to play dumb. I wasn't going to let them hide behind politeness. No, they wanted a performance, and I gave them one, but this time, it was mine. I started over slowly. I changed the sheets, the curtains, the layout of the bedroom. I repainted the walls, removed every scent, every object tied to him. I even bought new silverware. People laugh at that detail, but it mattered. I didn't want his hands on my forks, his history on my plates. Starting over wasn't about moving on fast. It was about reclaiming every corner of my space, inch by inch. I began writing again. Journaling, sketching, picking up pieces of myself I didn't even realize I'd abandoned. And every time I chose something for me, I remembered what power felt like. The whispers eventually faded. New scandals replaced mine. New stories of betrayal, of heartbreak, of revenge. But people still looked at me differently, some with admiration, others with caution. That's what happens when you refuse to play the victim. You become unpredictable, dangerous, and I liked that. I wasn't interested in being palatable anymore. I wasn't here to make anyone comfortable. I had lived in the shadow of someone else's lies for too long. Now, I was the fire. The one who burned the mask. The one who exposed the truth and walked away without flinching. That version of me wasn't going anywhere. Sometimes I still get dreams. Not of Ethan, of the dinner party. The exact moment the screen shifted and gasps filled the room, I hear the silence. The forks pausing midair. The moment their fantasy shattered in front of a live audience. And I smile in my sleep. Because that moment wasn't just revenge. It was resurrection. It was the day I buried the old me, the one who apologized too much, trusted too blindly, gave too freely. I buried her in that room, under the weight of their shame. And in her place stood someone reborn in fire, forged by betrayal, and hardened by truth. I tell this story not for pity, or praise, or spectacle. I tell it for every woman who's ever doubted her own instincts, Who's ever been told she's too emotional, too suspicious, too much? You are not crazy. You are not wrong. You are not weak for wanting answers. And when you get those answers, do not be afraid to show them to the world. Truth is not revenge. Truth is justice. And sometimes, justice needs an audience. So let the cameras roll. Let the lies burn. And when the ash settles, walk through it like a queen. Unbothered, unbroken, unmasked. And as for me, I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm just done playing nice. Done pretending. Done shrinking. I wear no more masks. I smile when I want, speak when I feel, and walk alone without fear. Because once you've survived the fire, you stop fearing the flame. I don't look for closure. I became it. The dinner party was never about destruction. It was about truth, about power, about reclaiming my voice in a world that tried to silence it. So to Ethan, to Harper, and to anyone who underestimated me, I hope the silence haunts you. I hope the truth scars you. And I hope you remember, I warned you with a smile.